Hello team, I hope you're all doing well. I'm making a very quick and somewhat special video for you today, this Monday, because we're going to talk a little bit about philosophy and a little bit about the market. So today is President's Day. It's a public holiday in the United States. And it's funny because I was just in the car charging my Tesla. We're heading back to Los Angeles. We went away for the weekend to do a bit of skiing at a resort called Big Bear. And it's funny because just as the wind is starting to pick up, the snow is beginning to fall. So we're going to try to leave early pretty quickly before we get caught by the snow, which is likely to start falling soon and quite heavily. But Big Bear, in the name Big Bear, there's the word bear. And bear, that reminds you of the bear market, which, in my opinion, we're actually knee-deep in right now. We're talking about Bitcoin. Today at 68,000, there was a little bounce, 2 to 3 hours ago, up to 70,000. We're kind of testing our investor mindset right now, and in my opinion, we're not there yet. We haven't hit the bottom yet. That's my opinion. It's just my opinion. By the way, tell me, in your opinion, how low do you think we'll go? Because everyone is trying to figure out where the bottom is. Actually, you shouldn't play that game because you always end up losing. Maybe one person out of 100 will be right, that person. In fact, we'll idolize them. We'll put them on a pedestal, saying, look, they called the bottom, but it doesn't really matter. I think today we're already at the bottom. That is to say, we're already at a very interesting entry point where, in fact, it's a good time to accumulate. If you arrived 3 months ago, if you arrived 6 months ago, maybe at the peak, let me remind you, it was October 5th, 2025. Maybe you bought at the top just like I did. I bought at the top on January 2nd, 2018. So that means there's still hope. If you manage to educate yourself, get support and understand the theory of cycles, because it's always the same thing. Every cycle is linked to the halving. Now, this one is a bit special because, as you know, institutions have entered the market. We hit an all-time high before the halving, which hadn't happened before. That doesn't mean it won't happen again every time we say that. No, it's never happened before, yeah, but there's always a first time for everything. But so, we were in a cycle of institutions, not in a cycle of institutional adoption, in my opinion. And that cycle is coming. It's going to be intense. It's not a question of if, it's a question of when, in my opinion. Maybe it'll take a year, 2 years, 3 years, maybe in 3 or 6 months we'll be at higher levels. By the way, we're in February and we're going to end in the red. It will be the worst start to the year in crypto in a very long time, because we're going to end February in the red, even though we ended January in the red as well, even though the first 5 days of the year were actually pretty positive. And now we've had 2 months in the red. We're probably at risk of seeing a small rally first week of March. In any case, if we had to take out the crystal ball, we might see a small uptick, but don't expect much before we drop back down to lower levels. Because historically, what happened in the past doesn't reflect at all what could happen in the future. But you have to be prepared for that. But if we take away a bit of that noise, all that timing, we're in a bear market since now October 5th, and generally from one cycle to another, at least from Bitcoin's top to its bottom, it's about a year. That would bring us to October 5th, 2026. And people, every time I remind you, expect it to hit the bottom or hope for the bottom before buying. No, you need to start buying right now, because by buying from the top to the bottom, rather than from the bottom to the potential top, well, it's actually more interesting to start from the top. At the very bottom, that's the lowest point, because you never know, and we don't know where that lowest point is. So how do you start at that bottom point or start accumulating at that bottom point if you don't know where it is? So I started my DCA on the 15th, yesterday. That's the entry point I had set for myself. I exited the market completely at 97,000. So that was around January 14th or 15th. If I focus in any case on altcoins, and I've made several videos about this, and I'm going to start reaccumulating today. What am I reaccumulating? I'm clearly not reaccumulating altcoins, simply because, in my opinion, we're going to reach lower levels. I'm only reaccumulating Bitcoin, that's it, because it's the only asset I'm certain will go higher, even if the bear market continues tomorrow. If this continues, in my opinion, it will keep going. Things will keep getting worse and altcoins are going to take a big hit. We've already talked about this in different live sessions. By the way, we might do a live on Wednesday. Let me know by saying live. If you want us to do a little live session on Wednesday, I'll try to answer as many questions as possible. But yesterday, for example, I started, and it's part of my plan, it's part of my strategy, to start accumulating BTC exclusively. As for ETH, I'm not there yet. And Force 1, starting from yesterday, Force 1, you know I have 3 forces, Force 1, Force 2, Force 3, because I think we're only at the beginning and that we could potentially go and reach lower points, which means we can actually strengthen that force and accumulate more heavily during the lower phases. After that, there are different strategies. There's the candlestick tail strategy. There's also the trigger strategy, which really allows you to buy during discount periods. In short, in my opinion, we've entered this bear market phase because the interest is still there. I still see it on the channel. I see it a bit on social media. The interest is still there. And people haven't really capitulated, even though many have pulled out of the market, even though many have sold, to the benefit of institutions that continue to accumulate quite heavily. So this is actually setting up for the next phase. And I would really like it if on the channel there were people who say to themselves, okay, I'm not giving up, I'm actually building my portfolio, or I'm building for the next phase. Because I often say it's not during the bull run that you get rich, but during the bear market. It's when there's no one around, when there's a lack of interest and prices are falling, Bitcoin is declining, Ethereum is declining. In short, there are quite a few technical elements that tell us that we can potentially reach lower levels. We had a $60,000 hair extension. I think we can go even lower than that. In any case, below 60, revisit below 60. How long will it take? No idea. It might be April, it might be May. Knowing that there's one interesting factor, the new Fed president will be coming in May, with the first meeting scheduled for June 17th. For now, there is no rate cut. We know that if there is no rate cut, there is no liquidity. If there is no liquidity, it can't flow into the market. So risk assets like crypto can't start rising again. And stocks are absolutely soaring right now. By the way, I was checking the news again this morning. Stocks keep soaring. The US market keeps surging. So there will be an important factor, which will be the arrival of Kevin Walsh, the new president of the Fed. And then we'll have the midterms, meaning the midterm elections. They'll be on November 3rd, 2026. And generally, all presidents, and this will be the case here, in Trump's case, he will want to defend his record. And how does he defend his record? With numbers. And those numbers will come from the traditional market, but also from the crypto market. Because he has been such a great promoter of crypto that he has to make sure that crypto isn't just at levels of $60,000, but potentially $80,000, $90,000, or even $100,000. Because then he can proudly and factually say that the United States is the world capital of crypto. For now, with Bitcoin at $60,000, it will be hard to defend his record, at least when it comes to crypto, to the crypto ecosystem. As for the traditional market, gold, he doesn't really talk much about gold, by the way. He's not necessarily going to defend gold. Instead, he'll talk more about stocks, the Nasdaq, the S&P 500, and crypto. He's having a bit of a hard time. Why? Because there's a lack of liquidity. Why? Because interest rates are still just as high. Why? Because rates are unlikely to go down during Jerome Powell's last 2 meetings. And that simply drives the crypto market downward. So all this to say, in my opinion, we're going to revisit lower levels. But today we're already at some very interesting levels. And I've started setting up a DCA on BTC, exclusively on BTC with Force 1. So there you go. I wanted to let you know, because it's true that I give you a lot of news, but I don't tell you exactly what I'm doing. If you like this kind of information, where I tell you a bit about what my current strategy is, don't hesitate to let me know in the comments, and I'll keep making them. So the sun is out, the weather's starting to get nice. We're going to hit the road calmly, and I'm going to grab a coffee. We'll meet again tomorrow for a daily update that's a bit more normal. I'll be in the Los Angeles studios. In any case, I hope you're doing well, and maybe I'll see you on the little live stream. Wednesday at 9 p.m. as well. This was Julian. Bye-bye. Have a great day.